So, the Rings of Power. I was really into the first half of the season. I thought it was really good. It was an improvement of season one. It felt like they had more energy to it. Pretty much all the rings were made. That was the main thing of this season, and I wish they could have started doing that in season one. But picking up from episode 5 here, it felt like they lost steam. It felt like they ran out of energy and they just wanted to get it done quick. Like characters like this, I feel like felt like underdeveloped. Pretty much forgot about him too. It's supposed to be impactful when he dies, but it didn't really feel that way. Like a scene like this, and it felt just clunky, the whole action here, especially because like really this guy's the most dangerous person according to them, and they couldn't let the others go and focus on holding back this guy. So it just felt off. A lot of this action just doesn't feel like well made, well directed. I think the Anatar and the Celebrimbor stuff was the strongest part of this season, but Anatar / Sauron felt a little bit less threatening at the end here. Like it started off nice in the first part of the season. He started to manipulate people, and he felt like really menacing, but now he's just like almost like in the background, just waiting for his minions to do his bidding, like Celebrimbor, who's under his spell and stuff. Maybe they should lean more into the cult vibe of him like mesmerizing all these elves here, right? There's so many like characters out there bouncing back and forth that it completely loses its focus, much like what happened with season 1, I think. And then then Galadriel spends a bunch of time in these last few episodes imprisoned. I heard a lot of chatter about episode 7 because it was the big battle episode. This episode kind of demonstrates how this show, even though it's so expensive, like they spend so much money on the show, it still kind of comes off as cheap. A lot of the scenes, particularly because of the writing, but also just the general direction of these battles, the quick cutting, it doesn't really linger long enough of the suffering of war of these soldiers. I haven't been able to connect with any of these soldiers on the field, really. Yeah, and then characters like Arundir feel so underdeveloped, like they were underused completely in this last part of the season. They realized that his character had little to do, and his whole purpose this season was just to get him to the other elves, so that next season he could maybe hopefully have more of a presence. In the long run, it's probably a good thing that they're consolidating all these characters together, but it should have been done a while ago. It's almost like they're writing it, trying to correct the mistakes as they go along. But yeah, I just don't feel like I'm in the battle. I feel so distant from this battle. Celebrimbor is trying to convince this other elf that, hey, he's not gone mad. He's telling the truth. Sauron is here. Pretty much Anatar / Sauron makes it look like he's the one who pushes her off, and it's pretty brutal. There wasn't much to her besides her being loyal to Anatar and kind of fawning over Avatar and like fawning over Anatar a bit, right? This would have had more of an impact if they spent more time developing her interest with Anatar and maybe go deeper into that cult leader dynamic. It just comes off as a little bit too gratuitous. I mean, it's all for the service of Celebrimbor's character arc, really. It's not as satisfying as it could be. Oh yeah, we have to have Celebrimbor make these rings, so let's just quicken this up by giving Anatar the power to slow down time and freeze time so Celebrimbor can make all these rings. Almost felt like a last minute addition to make it make sense that he could make the rings in time before the whole city goes to ruins. If this had been more of an ongoing story of him being trapped in time or manipulated in this way by Anatar throughout most of the season, that would have been much more effective, I think. But it's pretty cool, I guess. And then this sequence also felt rushed as well. Like the guards like suddenly are on Celebrimbor's side just because Galadriel convinces them somehow real quick. Celebrimbor's a good guy and Antar's bad. Like right here, they're all ready to like escort Celebrimbor back into the tower, and then Galadriel comes out of nowhere. It's like, hey, this guy is the true king of the city. And all of a sudden now the guards are like, oh, okay, sure, if Galadriel says so. The quick turn here of alliances just feels like unnatural again. It feels like they were just rushing this storyline. Then Sauron kills him. And again, so back to the battle, like we have another elf character here who we barely know anything about. And this whole sequence is supposed to be super heroic. Like, oh, look at this heroic elf who gets peppered with arrows and unleashes the one fire arrow to blow up the orcs. That's supposed to make me feel something. Maybe it could have been a different character. What if it was Arondir that did this? I don't know. Like, it's nice to see different elves, but we just didn't spend enough time with them because we're so focused on other characters like the Harfoots and whatever that, that screen time could have gone to this character maybe, And the scale of it just doesn't feel up to par to the movies, even though this show was billed to be like kind of like the movies on your TV screen. That looks like just a small set. So another example of like how this show feels so small even though it has this big budget is that they kept returning to this courtyard here. Couldn't they like show different areas of the city? Would have felt more real. It would have felt more like the whole city is at siege instead of just always returning to the same courtyard. They paused the battle to do some diplomacy here. And Elrond here, it's a sneaky little thing he does. He takes off a little pin from his brooch there and gives it to Galadriel, hiding the exchange with a kiss. This season we've been building up their relationship, and it's always felt like a friendship to me, So I never expected them to be together as a romantic couple or romantic interest for each other. I don't know, it just feels a little bit like a forced romance. It just doesn't feel right. He didn't have to kiss her. He could have just like leaned in and give her a hug or something, It's like it felt like the kiss was there just to tick a box of like, okay, we have a romance in this episode now. I like romance. I like having a good romantic story, but it just wasn't built up with them throughout the series. It was always a friendship. This is a very hetero show in general, but it was nice to see like a platonic opposite sex friendship in the show. And so it just felt unnecessary. We already have some good romances too, like Disa and Durin. That's a good one. Okay, so then back to the Harfoots and the wizard. This sequence is probably the worst sequence of the season. They were like, we forgot to film the conclusion to the Harfoot story arc and the stranger. Let's quickly get everyone together in this area. This was building up to a lot, and then suddenly like the stranger, is now with the Harfoots, and like I don't even remember him coming here in the heart, and then the guys in the mask have them held hostage, and the dark wizard is here, and all of a sudden these masked guys betray the dark wizard. This happened so quickly that I thought it was like a dream sequence or something. It felt like this sequence just plopped in here. I could have bet that this was just a dream sequence or something that the stranger was having, and that a fear that he had in his mind of like meeting the dark wizard or whatever. But no, this is what actually is happening. The whole thing here, I guess, is that he's gonna stick with his friends, and not join the dark wizard to take over Sauron's power. Chooses friendship over power. And those are the stars that were on his map that he's been looking for all this time. I like this development of having Adar change into his elf form because of the ring. Again, even humanizing him more. I felt like part of this season was trying to humanize the orcs more, but I don't think it was entirely successful. All the orcs have been shown as pretty much evil or just awful. I think the show is just too scared of actually humanizing the actual orcs, and instead is humanizing a half orc or whatever, this elf who's half elf, I guess, or an elf who was tainted by darkness, whatever. and like that's the only way they can humanize that race. I don't know, like, again, they probably don't want to veer too much away from the Tolkien mythology, but but then this whole sequence of maybe redeeming the orcs just and then having the orcs being this oppressed people is not fulfilling at the end here. Sauron is back to stab Adar, just like we saw Adar do the same to Sauron in the opening. That was a much more effective display of vengeance there, and this just seems a bit repetitive for the sake of being poetic. It's Galadriel and Sauron back at it, and this fight sequence is like okay, like him transforming into different characters is pretty cool, I guess. Like, we got to include a sword fight at the end, so let's just do this real quick on top of this Stonehenge type of looking thing. So then again, it becomes repetitive with Galadriel pretending to give the ring, and then she instead decides to jump off the cliff. That's what Elrond did, right? In episode 2 or 3, one of those. She just landed on solid ground. So what? So now, like, elves have the ability to survive great falls like this? It just felt like a sloppy conclusion to that battle that was, again, felt compulsory to have a climactic sword fight at the end. And then Elrond puts on the ring to save Galadriel. That completes his arc because he's been against the rings this whole time. By the way, the wizard figures out their name. He picks up his staff, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to be called Gandalf." Surprise, surprise, it's Gandalf the whole time. But yeah, I wish that it would have been nice if this wizard turned out to be a whole different wizard, and not Gandalf. But they have to have Gandalf in it so they can sell the season, I guess. Like, oh, look, if you want to see the origin of Gandalf, come to Amazon Prime. But on the bright side, it looks like maybe the Harfoot storyline is over. Now that Nori and friends helped the stranger on his journey to discover himself. This is an easy way out. They don't have to return back to the Harfoots now. Yeah, and so anyway, so the elves decide to seek sanctuary in this valley that turns out to be Rivendell, I think it's called. All the elves are together. That's pretty cool, but again, it feels like formulaic because at the end here, they all start cheering. They escaped the battle, I guess, and they found some safety, but like this felt more like an Empire Strikes Back type of season, right? Like that whole battle like destroyed that elf city pretty much, and now they're the underdogs, and now Sauron has pretty much all the rings. He just needs to create the one to rule them all. This doesn't feel like a triumphant moment, and so it feels like they just decided, we have to end it in a happy note to make everybody feel better. It didn't feel deserved, this moment. At the end of it all, it just felt like they ran out of desire to really bother with actually giving this season a satisfying ending or conclusion. And they put all their energy into the first few episodes. Next season, I don't see it getting much better, to be honest. Again, my perspective is that of someone who's into fantasy. I like fantasy stuff, but not necessarily a fan of Tolkien, but more from a general storytelling and filmmaking, TV making perspective. This whole series is just lackluster. I decided to review the first half of the season, so I felt like I needed to give some closure here and give my thoughts on this later half. Like, if you just want some nice imagery, some nice Tolkien imagery on your TV screen and not focus too much on the writing, then I think you'll have a decent time with the show, I guess, and future seasons as well, most likely, I imagine. Who knows what the future tells? I don't have a Palantir. I can't foretell. But it's just, it's one of those shows that, like, on the edge of just being entertaining enough for me to, like, want to even finish it, like, and continue. Like, I think the spectacle of it is really what keeps me interested at this point. And if I wasn't even talking about it on this channel, I probably might even skip some sequences, like the Numenor stuff. I feel like I might even want to skip those segments, just watch the elf and the dwarf stuff. I don't mind if they just like focus on the elves, really. Like that's the main draw here. Also, where did Ben Daniels go? His character was like the coolest, but he was entirely missing from the later half of the season. I miss that elder elf. Anyways, that'll be it. I'll see y'all next time. Under the moonlight. Maybe in the unseen world. Who knows? Bye bye.